I never imagined that a city like Philadelphia could turn into a graveyard of the living. In the year 2025, I stood on the cracked sidewalks of Kensington and watched people stumble like shadows without souls. Their eyes were empty, their bodies trembling, collapsing right in front of me. They were not the neighbors I once knew, not the sons or daughters of proud families, but broken shells consumed by a deadly powder called fentanyl. This is not a horror movie. This is my story, the story I lived through, the nights I fought to survive among needles scattered on the ground and the cries of people overdosing in the cold. I lost my job, my home, and finally myself when this drug invaded my veins. And I am here to tell you, not for pity, but to show you the real price thousands of homeless Americans are paying every single day. Stay with me until the end. If you know someone battling this ghost, share this video, leave your comment below, and let them know they are not invisible. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so together we can bring these untold stories into the light. By the year 2025, I had come to understand that America is fighting a war most people don't even see. It is not fought with guns or bombs, but with a white powder that slips into your veins and steals everything from you. That powder is called fentanyl. I remember the first time I read the statistics. More than 112,000 Americans died from overdoses in the year 2023, and nearly 70% of those deaths were caused by fentanyl. I froze when I saw that number. That was not just a headline. That was the reality I was living in. I realized I was not just a man lost in the streets of Philadelphia. I was one of the statistics they were talking about. Fentanyl is unforgiving. It is 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. A dose no bigger than a few grains of sugar can shut down your breathing in less than a minute. And out here on the streets, you never know what you are really taking. Dealers mix it into cocaine, meth, counterfeit pills, even marijuana, creating a deadly lottery, where every hit could be your last. For people like me, already broken and desperate, it does not feel like a choice anymore. It feels like fate. If you want to see the heart of this crisis, you do not need to read government reports. You just need to walk through Kensington in Philadelphia. I have been there. I have walked those sidewalks. I have seen men and women bend like their bones were made of rubber, frozen in mid-step, their eyes rolled back, drool sliding down their lips. The air smells of sweat, blood, and chemicals. The ground is littered with needles that crunch beneath your shoes. Some people call it zombie land. For me, it was home. But it is not only Philadelphia. I heard about San Francisco, where more than 800 people died of overdoses in the year 2023, most of them from fentanyl. In Los Angeles County, over 2,000 deaths in that same year were linked to synthetic opioids. Across the country, the homeless population has become the frontline casualty. In many cities, more than half of all homeless deaths are now caused by overdoses, most of them fentanyl-related. The government keeps spending money, but money alone is not saving lives. In San Francisco, nearly $850 million were poured into homelessness and addiction services in the year 2024, yet more people died. Shelters are overcrowded. Rehab programs have waiting lists, stretching for months, and mental health care is nearly impossible to find. In Philadelphia, the city spent millions on police sweeps to clear encampments, but the tents always return. Removing people without removing the drug just pushes the crisis from one block to the next. Behind every statistic is a person like me. Many of us were not born on the streets. We had jobs, we had families, but one job loss, one medical bill, one broken home was enough to send us spiraling. Once fentanyl entered our veins, it chained us. Withdrawal is not just pain, it is torture. Your bones ache like they are splitting in two. Your stomach empties itself until nothing is left. Sweat pours from your skin as if your body is burning alive. Every second feels like dying. So you return to the drug even when you know it may kill you. They call it the second pandemic. For me, it was my daily life. While the world worried about COVID, fentanyl crept into every corner. It does not care if you are a teenager experimenting for the first time, a veteran fighting nightmares from war, or a waitress who just lost her home. It finds you, it drags you down, and once it has you, it does not let go. Here is something that chills me every time I think about it. In the time it takes to watch this video, at least 10 more Americans will die from an overdose. Some will collapse in a public bathroom. Some will die in tents undiscovered for days. Some will take their final breath on a crowded sidewalk while strangers step over their bodies. This is the America no tourist guide will ever show you, but it is real and it is spreading. I ask myself often, how did the richest country in the world allow its streets to turn into graveyards? And more importantly, what will it take to stop this silent massacre? Before I tell you the story of how I personally fell into fentanyl's grip after losing my job, I want to ask you something. Do you believe one wrong choice, one single moment, could push a life from stability into the streets forever? If you have seen this happen, share your story in the comments, because your words might reach someone before fentanyl does. My name is Daniel, though. Out here most people just call me Ghost. I was not born on these streets. I was not always a man wandering alleys with a needle in my pocket. I once had a job, a family, a future, or at least I believed I did. I grew up in a small Pennsylvania town in a modest home that always smelled faintly of motor oil because my father worked in a garage. We were not rich, but we had enough. I played baseball in the summers, dreamed of working construction, or maybe even opening a small shop of my own one day. Drugs were something I saw in movies, not something I thought would ever reach me. But life does not ask for permission before it knocks you down. I was 23 when the factory where I worked shut down. Overnight, hundreds of us were left without paychecks. I told myself it would only be temporary, that I would find something else. Weeks stretched into months. Rent piled up. My girlfriend packed her bags one morning and left a note that read, "I cannot live like this." Suddenly, the walls of my apartment felt like they were closing, and each bill taped to the fridge, another reminder that I was drowning. That is when I first heard the name fentanyl. A friend from high school, someone I had not seen in years, ran into me outside a convenience store. He looked thinner, his face hollow, but he smiled like nothing was wrong. "Take this," he said, slipping a small pill into my hand. "It will calm you down, help you forget for a while." I should have thrown it away. I should have walked away. But when you are sitting alone in a dark room with nothing left to lose, forgetting feels like the only gift the world still has for you. The first time I used, I remember a warmth spreading through my body like liquid fire. The anxiety, the shame, the ache in my chest, they all vanished in seconds. For the first time in months, I slept. For the first time in months, I did not hate myself. I told myself it would be just once. It never is. Days blurred into weeks. Fentanyl was cheap, only a few dollars on the street. I could pawn my tools, sell my phone, skip meals, anything to buy another dose. I promised myself I was still in control, but control was the first thing the drug stole from me. My landlord did not care about my excuses. When I missed 2 months of rent, he shoved my things into black trash bags and left them on the curb. I remember standing there holding a backpack with a change of clothes, watching traffic pass, wondering how I had fallen so fast. I told myself I was between places just for a few nights, but a few nights turned into a few years. That is how the street claims you quietly, almost politely, until you realize it has swallowed you whole. Life on the street teaches you hard lessons quickly. I learned that you cannot sit too long on a bench without being moved along. I learned that people will not look you in the eye when you ask to use their bathroom. I learned that the fastest way to silence the hunger clawing at your stomach is to find another hit. Out here, fentanyl is not just a drug, it is currency, it is comfort, it is survival. I was not the only one. Every night I saw more faces like mine, young men who had once worked construction, mothers who had lost custody of their kids, veterans carrying invisible scars from wars no one wanted to talk about. Some of them told me their stories. Others just sat in silence, nodding off beside me, the sound of their shallow breathing filling the space between us. Looking back, I can see the signs I ignored. The family calls I stopped answering. The unopened letters from my sister begging me to come stay with her. The nights I told myself I would quit tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes for people like us. The drug whispers louder than your conscience, stronger than your promises. I was arrested once for sleeping in a public park. The officer shook me awake in the middle of the night, shining a flashlight in my face. "Move along, you cannot stay here," he said, his voice cold like I was not even human. I remember wanting to scream, "Move along to where?" but I did not. I just picked up my backpack and stumbled into the dark, another ghost drifting through the city. What hurt the most was not the hunger or the cold. It was the way people looked at me, or did not look at all. To them, I was invisible, a failure, a warning sign for their children. Nobody saw Daniel anymore. They only saw an addict, but I remember the man I used to be. I remember the dreams I had, and I remember the exact moment I realized those dreams were slipping through my fingers. It was the day I watched my reflection in a dirty store window and did not recognize the person staring back. My cheeks were hollow, my eyes sunken, and in my hand was a needle I had promised myself I would never touch. That was the day fentanyl stopped being a way to forget and became the reason I had nothing left to remember. Every morning on the street starts the same way, with the sound of sirens and the ache of withdrawal tearing at my bones. It does not matter if I found a corner to sleep in or a bench to curl up on. When the drug wears off, my body screams. Sweat runs down my neck, my stomach twists until I cannot stand upright, and every thought in my head is replaced with a single command: find the next hit. Kensington is not a neighborhood anymore. It is an open-air battlefield. Tents line the sidewalks like broken teeth, scraps of cardboard and plastic sheets flapping in the wind. You do not need a map to find the dealers. They are everywhere, leaning against streetlights, waiting in alleys. A single pill can cost $5. $5 to quiet the storm in your chest. $5 to make it through another few hours. I have traded food, clothes, even my own blood, just to get that money. Outreach workers once told me that more than 60% of Philadelphia's homeless population has used fentanyl at least once. I do not need statistics to believe it. Every face I pass is marked by the same hollow eyes, the same trembling hands. Some people inject right there on the sidewalk in broad daylight, their sleeves rolled up, their veins mapped with scars. I have seen teenagers no older than 16, nodding off in the middle of the afternoon, their heads lolling forward, their lives already slipping away. The city tries to sweep us away. Police vans pull up flashing lights, bounce off the tents, and officers shout for us to move along. They clear one block, and within hours the tents reappear on the next street. You can move people, but you cannot move the hunger inside them. Until the drug is gone, until the pain has somewhere else to go, we will always return. I remember one winter night when the temperature dropped below freezing. I huddled under a bridge with 3 others, our breath fogging the air, sharing a single blanket between us. We passed around a syringe like it was the only thing keeping us alive. And in a way it was. The drug numbed the cold, numbed the hunger, numbed the knowledge that we might not wake up the next morning. That night, one of the men did not. I woke to find him stiff, his lips, blue, his body still. No one came for hours. No ambulance, no police. Just another body, another ghost on a street full of them. Hunger is a constant companion. I have eaten food from trash cans, pulled half-eaten sandwiches from greasy bags, swallowed moldy bread just to quiet the growl in my stomach. Once I found a cold burger behind a fast food restaurant, and before I could even finish it, a worker stormed outside and screamed, "Get out of here, you filthy thief!" I ran, clutching the soggy bun, tears stinging my eyes, ashamed not just of what I had done, but of what I had become. Even when I was not hungry, I was thirsty. Try walking into a cafe looking like me and asking to use the restroom. They point to the sign, "For customers only." I have seen well-dressed people walk past me and get a smile, a key, a kind word. But me, I was invisible at best, a criminal at worst. Once a mother pulled her child away from me, whispering, "Do not look, they are dangerous." Her words cut deeper than any cold night ever could. Fear is everywhere too. At night when the streets go quiet, that is when the predators come out. I have been kicked awake by groups of young men, laughed at as they threw cans at me, calling me trash. I have seen women forced into cars in exchange for a hot meal or a place to sleep. Outreach workers say 1 in 4 homeless women in America experiences sexual exploitation, and I do not doubt it. I have heard the cries in the dark. I have seen the bruises the next morning. Withdrawal, hunger, fear, it all circles back to fentanyl. The drug is the center of every day, every choice, every breath. Without it, you cannot move. With it, you are already halfway to the grave. It is a trap with no exit sign, and every one of us in Kensington is caught inside. Sometimes I try to remember the man I used to be. I used to walk through the city with my head held high, thinking about paychecks, friends, weekends. Now I walk hunched over eyes, scanning the ground for discarded pills or half-empty bags. I used to dream of building a future. Now I just hope to make it to the end of the day. When I see reports about more than 2,000 fentanyl deaths in Los Angeles in a single year, or more than 800 in San Francisco, I no longer see numbers. I see faces. The man under the bridge, the teenager in the alley, the woman who disappeared into a stranger's car, and maybe tomorrow it will be me. This is what street life has become: survival, measured not in days but in hours, in hits, in borrowed blankets, in stolen minutes of rest. If you have never walked through these streets, you might think we are lazy, hopeless criminals. But I promise you, most of us were just like you once. We had jobs, we had families, we had names. Now we are ghosts haunting America's sidewalks, waiting for someone to see us again. There are moments that split your life in two, the time before and the time after. For me, that moment came one cold evening on Kensington Avenue. His name was Marcus. He was the closest thing I had to a brother on the streets. We shared everything: blankets, scraps of food, and every single hit we could get our hands on. Marcus used to talk about his daughter. He had not seen her in years, but he carried a photo folded so many times the edges were torn. He would show it to me whenever he was sober enough, whispering, "One day I will be clean. One day I will see her again." That night, the air was biting. We huddled against the wall, passing a bag between us. Marcus drew the needle, tapped it once, and said, almost jokingly, "This is the one that is going to keep me warm." He tied off his arm, pushed the plunger, and within seconds his eyes rolled back. At first I thought he was nodding out, like always, but then his lips turned blue. His chest stopped moving. His body slid down the wall until he crumpled at my feet. I shook him. "Marcus, wake up." Nothing. I screamed for help, but the people passing by just glanced and kept walking. Out here, overdoses are as common as rain. Nobody stopped. Nobody cared. I tried pressing on his chest, slapping his face, begging him to breathe. His photo slipped from his pocket and landed in the dirt beside us. I picked it up with shaking hands, staring at the face of the little girl who would never see her father again. Tears blurred my eyes as I realized Marcus's promise to get clean to go home had died right there on the sidewalk. I felt something inside me break that night. I had seen overdoses before, but this was different. This was someone I loved, someone who had kept me alive when I wanted to give up. And fentanyl stole him like it had stolen everyone else. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat there for hours, his body growing colder next to me until the sirens finally came. They lifted him into a bag like he was nothing more than trash. I followed the ambulance down the street until my legs gave out. From that night on, the world turned darker. I stopped carrying hope. I stopped pretending I could change. I told myself I was next. Maybe that was easier than fighting. Maybe it was easier to surrender to the ghost already inside me. The night Marcus died, I thought my story was over too. I walked the streets with his picture in my pocket, convinced I would not last another week. My body was weak, my mind was broken, and every breath felt borrowed. But sometimes hope does not come as a miracle. It comes as a stranger with a kind face. Her name was Sarah, a volunteer with one of the outreach vans that parked on the edge of Kensington. I remember the headlights cutting through the dark, and then her voice gentle, steady, not shouting at me to move along, not calling me trash. She crouched down beside me and asked, "When was the last time you ate?" I could not answer. My throat closed up. She handed me a bottle of water, a sandwich, and a small orange box. Inside was Narcan. That night, Sarah saved someone else in the alley with me, sprayed Narcan into his nose when he collapsed. Within minutes, his chest heaved and he gasped back to life. I watched it happen. I had seen fentanyl steal dozens of people, but for the first time I saw someone come back. It felt like watching a ghost pulled out of a grave. I did not know it then, but that small spray would become the first spark of hope in my own life too. Sarah did not give up on me. She kept coming back. She told me there was a bed open at a rehab center, part of a program supported by the city. I laughed in her face the first time. Rehab felt impossible. I had tried to quit before and failed. The sickness, the sweats, the screaming inside my head, it always drove me back. But Sarah just said, "You do not have to do it alone this time." Something in her eyes made me believe her. The first days in rehab were hell. My body convulsed, my skin burned, and I begged the staff to let me out. They held my hand, whispered that I was stronger than the drug. I did not believe them. but slowly, hour by hour, the storm passed. 3 days in the fog started to lift. After weeks, I could look in a mirror without seeing a stranger. The program was not just about detox. They gave me counseling, meals, a place to sleep that was not concrete. They told me I was not worthless, that relapse did not mean failure, that addiction was a disease, not a death sentence. I was not used to kindness. I was not used to anyone believing in me. For the first time in years, I started to believe in myself. Narcan became more than a word. It became proof that lives could be saved. I learned that more than 70% of overdose deaths in America now involve fentanyl. But I also learned that communities giving out Narcan freely were cutting those deaths down. In Massachusetts, they told me more than 85% of people who entered treatment after Narcan intervention stayed sober 2 years later. Those were not just statistics anymore, they were my lifeline. After 90 days, I left rehab. I was sober, but sobriety is fragile when you do not have a roof over your head. That is when I was introduced to a Housing First program. They did not make me prove I was clean to give me a place to stay. They gave me a place first so I could stay clean. It was just a small room, 4 walls and a bed, but to me, it felt like a castle. For the first time in years, I locked a door behind me and knew I was safe. I started working in a community kitchen through a training program. The first day I chopped onions, my hands shook, not from withdrawal but from nerves. The smell of soup filling the air reminded me of nights I had dug through trash for food. Now I was serving hot meals to people who were still on the streets, people who looked at me the way I used to look at others, with hollow eyes and empty stomachs. I wanted them to see that recovery was possible even if it felt out of reach. I was not alone anymore. I met James, a veteran who had lost everything to fentanyl but was rebuilding his life piece by piece. I met Maria, a young mother who had been forced onto the streets after losing her job. Together, we formed a fragile family, people broken in different ways but stitched back together with the same thread of survival. Not every day was easy. Some mornings the cravings came back like a whisper in my ear. Some nights I dreamed of the needle. But every time I felt myself slipping, I thought of Marcus, of his daughter's photo crumpled in the dirt, of Sarah's voice telling me I was stronger than the drug. Those memories pulled me back. I do not pretend I am cured. Addiction does not just vanish. It lingers in the shadows waiting. But now I have tools. I have people. I have hope. And hope is something fentanyl can never take from me again. When I stepped out of rehab and into my own small apartment, I thought my fight was over. But walking back through the city, seeing the same tents I once slept in, the same hollow faces staring into nothing, I realized my story was just one thread in a much bigger web. I was not the only one fentanyl tried to bury. There were thousands of us, and not everyone got the chance I did. Fentanyl is not just my enemy, it is America's enemy. It has turned entire neighborhoods into open-air morgues, and it is tearing families apart from coast to coast. I read that in Los Angeles County, more than 2,000 people died from synthetic opioids in the year 2023, and in San Francisco, over 800 people were lost the same year. In my own city, Philadelphia, overdoses killed more people than car crashes and gun violence combined. These are not strangers. They are mothers, veterans, students, waitresses, men who once wore suits, women who once tucked their children into bed. And homelessness makes the crisis worse. When you live outside, you do not have safety nets. You do not have a family doctor, a pharmacy, or even a locked door. You only have the streets, and the streets do not forgive. Out there, fentanyl is cheaper than food, easier to find than a clean bathroom, and deadlier than any winter storm. That is why homeless people like me fall so fast. We are already on the edge, and one wrong step sends us into the abyss. But I have learned that the problem is not hopeless. I am living proof of that, and I have seen with my own eyes what works and what does not. First, we need to save lives before anything else. That means Narcan. The spray that pulled a man back from death in an alley can pull thousands more. Some states now give it out for free. I believe every city should do the same. No questions asked. Because dead people do not recover. Second, we need Housing First programs. I would never have stayed sober if I had not had 4 walls around me and a bed to sleep in. Too many programs demand sobriety before they offer shelter. That is backwards. You cannot fight an addiction while freezing under a bridge. Give people a home first, and then give them the tools to stay clean. Third, we need treatment on demand. When I was using, I called hotlines and was told to wait weeks for a bed. But fentanyl does not wait. It kills today. It kills tonight. If someone finally says I am ready to quit, we cannot hand them a calendar, we have to hand them a door that opens right now. Fourth, we need mental health services. A lot of us do not just use drugs to get high, we use them to quiet the voices of trauma, abuse, depression, PTSD. Without counseling, without therapy, without people to talk to, even the strongest among us fall back. I know because I did. Finally, we need to see the homeless as human beings again. I lost count of the times I was called filthy, lazy, worthless. Those words cut deeper than hunger. If you are watching this, maybe you have walked past someone like me on the street. Maybe you looked away. But the truth is, none of us are immune. One accident, one layoff, one medical bill, and it could be you or someone you love. I have heard politicians argue about budgets and policies while people die in doorways. I have seen cities spend millions on sweeps instead of solutions, but I have also seen what happens when compassion leads the way. In Dallas, they nearly ended homelessness downtown by uniting more than 150 organizations under one plan. In New York, more than 1,000 people were moved from the subway into permanent homes through outreach and persistence. These are not miracles, they are models. If one city can do it, others can too. I am not saying it is easy. Recovery is not easy. It is a daily fight. But what I know is this: people like me do not need pity, we need chances. We need a bed instead of a bench. We need medicine instead of morgues. We need hands reaching down to pull us up, not boots pushing us away. My life was saved by one person who refused to walk past me, by one program that gave me a bed instead of a jail cell, by one spray that brought a man back to life right in front of me. Multiply that by thousands, by millions, and maybe, just maybe, we can turn this around. Because fentanyl may be powerful, but I have seen something stronger: compassion backed by action. I was once called trash, chased from parks, left to die in alleys. I believed I was invisible. But today, I stand here speaking to you alive, sober, and determined to make sure others do not vanish the way Marcus did. Fentanyl stole years of my life, but it did not win. I am living proof that recovery is possible, that no one is too far gone to find their way back. And if my story means anything, let it mean this: every life on the street matters. Every face you walk past has a story just like mine. I cannot do this alone. We need to raise our voices together. Share this video so more people understand the reality we are facing. Leave a comment, tell me your story, or the reason this fight matters to you. Your words might reach someone in the darkness tonight. And please subscribe and turn on notifications, because the more of us who speak up, the harder it becomes for society to look away. America does not need to be a nation of ghosts. We can build a place where second chances are real, where compassion is stronger than fentanyl. The only question is, are you ready to be part of that change?